It's not a boy. Chapter 5, Aunty Cecily, Part 1. Mum was always sewing. When I went to bed, I could hear her machine downstairs. Even when our stair door was closed, I could still hear it. Rattle, rattle, rattle it went. Then rrrr when it got going at top speed. Every night I heard her sewing clothes for us all, from bits of material that nobody else wanted. She was always going to the remnant shop in Ripsey or unpicking our old clothes. Then she laid the material out on our table and cut out funny-looking shapes. Then she sat at her machine concentrating with her feet on the pedal, going backwards and forwards, and the needle going up and down so fast it was just a blur. And out came coats, dresses, blouses, skirts, and everything that you would want. Except that all I wanted was to go to the shops in Hull and actually buy some clothes like Helen King and posh people did. But no, Mum had to make all our clothes to save money. Every spare penny had to go back on our farm to buy animals or implements. Our farm was the most important things in our life, and we knew that because Dad said it was our livelihood. So Mum made everything out of anything. She even made a mattress for my bed. I never got big enough to come out of my cot and go into a proper bed, but I did get old enough. So one day Mum decided the time had come, and she got some empty sacks out of our barn and spread them on our table and cut the seams to make flat squares. Then she washed them and sewed them together on her sewing machine and made 2 big bags, which she stuffed full of fresh straw from our stackyard. And then I had a mattress. Well, I had 2 mattresses really. It was in 2 halves pushed up together. So when I went into my big bed at last, there was a crack down the middle. And I liked that crack because in winter when I got very cold, I snuggled up and put my feet down it to warm them up. And that crack was good in another way because I could keep my treasures in there. My little charm bracelet and its brown wren and pink ballet dancer were there. And at night, when I was frightened or worried, I could hold them in the dark and feel safe in my bed. One morning, my dad had to get out of his bed in a hurry because the sheep were lambing. One was lambing with twins and she had problems and needed help. Well, apparently this sheep was heaving and straining, but she couldn't get her twins out of her body. Dad had to call our vet, who cut the mother sheep up and she died. The vet pulled out 2 sloppy, floppy lambs and they were alive. Dad grabbed them straight away and started rubbing them down with straw. He rubbed on their little wet coats of curly sprouting wool till suddenly one bleated "Ma!" and then the next one copied her brother. They were both alive and they were both well, but what could we do with 2 little orphan lambs? Well, there was another sheep, our only black sheep, the one that had made me laugh when I was a baby. She was getting old, and her baby had been born dead, but Dad had a special job for her now. He wanted her to feed a little orphan lamb. But sheep won't do that easily, you know. If their lamb dies, they won't just adopt another baby like humans do. No, if another lamb comes up for their milk, the sheep takes a sniff at it, and if it doesn't smell like hers, then she butts it away. She won't let it drink her milk. Dad tried a cunning trick. He got his penknife and cut the woolly coat off the dead lamb and spread it out on some straw. It was a funny shape now, like a cutout of Mum's material. Then Dad tied the dead lamb's woolly shape onto one of the orphan lambs with binder twine. The lamb looked really funny running about with its new coat on, bleating for some milk. And our old black sheep came up to it and sniffed it. She didn't suspect a thing. She just thought, that smells like my lamb, and she let it drink her milk. And she would bring it up as her own now, and that was the end of that. But we still had the other twin with no mother. There was nothing for it. I had to look after that little remnant of a lamb that nobody wanted, and I had to bring it up as my pet lamb. Every morning before school, I had to feed him with calf's milk made from powder and water. I mixed it up in a bucket and stirred it with a stick, and then put it into a bottle, put a teat on, and got my pet lamb to suckle that. He was really greedy and strong, my lamb. He pushed and pushed at the bottle to get more milk faster and nearly knocked it out of my hands. He grew very quickly, and he just loved me. We were friends. He followed me about wherever I went. And when I went to school, he followed me up our lane to the bus stop. He waited till I got on the school bus, and then he ran back down the lane to our farm. At night, when I got back home, he was always at the top of our lane, waiting for me. He must have worked out when I was coming home and trotted up to meet me. He was very clever, my lamb. I couldn't wait to show him to Aunty Cecily. Aunty Cecily wasn't my real auntie, of course. None of my aunties had such a posh name as that. But Mum said it was only polite to call her auntie because we couldn't call a grown-up by just her real name. That would be rude, and you must not be rude if you want to get on in the world. Aunty Cecily was a friend of Peggy's. They had met in the war when they were both passing on secret messages. They would be lifelong friends, like my pet lamb and me. Aunty Cecily lived down south in London, and she worked in a posh shop that sold very expensive materials that people bought to take to a dressmaker to make clothes for themselves. There was no sewing up bits of scrap material on your own sewing machine at night for Aunty Cecily's posh ladies. Auntie Peggy brought Aunty Cecily to see us all at Gum, and we stared at her fashionable clothes. "Don't stare, it's rude," said Mum, but we always did. And we stared even more when we were trying to understand her posh way of talking. I took her to our paddock to see my pet lamb, and she tiptoed carefully in her little satin shoes that looked as if they belonged to a ballet dancer like Helen. Then she spread her picnic rug out. She brought it specially to sit on our grass. I saw her kick bits of muck away before she carefully unfolded it. The blood-red tartan made our green grass jump. I could see Aunty Cecily's big curls bouncing up and down as she nodded her head and concentrated. She used to do that, nod her head, when she was being serious. And she was very serious, getting ready to sit down comfortably in our paddock. She pressed her stocking legs together and went down sideways, very posh and ladylike. Then she watched me feed my little lamb. Well, he was not so little now. He was growing fast. He grew much faster than I did, in fact.